Ron began his connection with Alexander Lowen in 1968, following a path already established by his wife, Gloria. Ron credits the work of Dr. Lowen and the institute that he established as having been central for his own work, his emotional development, and his personal and professional growth. Ron is an IIBA trainer, a former trustee, and a frequent contributor at conferences and to the journal. He is the author of the book Rhythmic Integration, Finding Wholeness in the Cycle of Change, which is based on and extends bioenergetic principles. Among his more recent achievements are a rapid treatment for panic attacks and improving the skills of basketball players. Ron?
Well, I have to begin by saying how moved I am about what all that has taken place up to this moment. Moved and awed and humbled. And I want to thank Ed, and I want to thank Virginia and Bill and Hugo and now Scott for stepping into one role that Al had, and that was directing the Institute. Without them stepping in, even though Al gave warning after warning what this would mean to run an organization, we wouldn't be here today, and I think the future of the work would be very different. So I'm very grateful to be here. Al's contributions have been essential in my life in so many ways, and so many parts of my life refer back to that, even though often I'm not consciously aware of the influence. A moment's reflection brings me back to it. My comments come from several vantage points, that of the student, the client, what might very loosely be called a bit of a biographer, and the Institute colleague of both Alexander Lowen and many of you. As a student of an energetic teacher, consistent in his content and method, Alexander Lowen taught me that the body is the most direct road to the unconscious, that physical dynamics play a central role in how we do, that therapy is a lifelong process, that pleasure, grace, and groundedness are core values, that standing on one's feet is physical as well as a psychological experience. When body and words are incongruent, go with the body. These were ideas I could agree with, follow, and when I could, give to others. As a client, memories of breakthrough, and as you've already heard, the hard approach. The hard approach, fingers in my mouth, pressures on my chest, taken to limits of endurance, and then beyond. To know Al and to be with him in any capacity is to bring up aspects of transference, be it positive or negative. For me in therapy, it was negative transference. Al's my mother, me and my mom. Early on, deprivation, then war, and the development of a strong, well-exercised refusal to give up. I hated dominance, and I had my strategies. With this background, my early therapy was marked by intellectual rather than emotional and fully human involvement. I watched what Al did with me to know what to do with my clients. I especially loved his early books. I studied them closely, yet wondered doubtfully whether this transference figure in front of me could really have been the person who wrote with such depth and understanding. Then there's the honesty of the man. After 3 years of the therapy, he stopped and he looked at me and asked, "What character are you, anyhow?" I was bewildered by this, coming from the expert in public sessions who could read character in a moment. It was a long road to come up with a satisfactory, complex answer for why the dilemma. But that's a story for a different place. And then there was the breakthrough into feelings, the sensations of pain. I may be one of the few that celebrated the awakening of pain into awareness. I had learned to deny it through my frequent childhood experience with doctors. I celebrated. With pain, I was feeling. The pleasures of rage, touching base with the passion of me as a protester and a rebel, and where the drive came for my social activism. The awakening of love, wholeheartedness, which eventually led me to a full appreciation of Al, what he did for me and for others, the life power he manifested in those who knew and worked with him. After several years of hiatus from therapy, I returned to work with Al. It was a return for tears. I wanted to cry, and that was the subject of the moment for him. This therapy was different. Memories of easy, the soft approach. How I grew to love that word, easy, Ron, easy. Easier approach. It was more suited to my energetic capacities. I could identify with it. Let down, let go, surrender. I did pretty well with the first two. Let down, let go. Surrender? Al taught surrender, but I didn't see him as doing it very often. Not to the whole human experience, to life and death, to victory and defeat. Surrender, I believed in it, and I could teach about it. There are times we must give in to our nature. Fight it, we will be destroyed. Still, as I saw Al, he was battling on. Giving in? I wasn't about to do it. The hero dies but once, or so it is said. As the loosely called bit of a biographer, I was writing the book Rhythm Integration, Finding Wholeness in the Cycle of Change. It deals with the steps of change, steps based on the positive aspects of character. For each step, I interview a leading therapist of the time. My aim, to trace their personal history and how their character plays out in their approach. I pick Al, along with Virginia Satir, to illustrate the achiever character, the rigid character. For the achiever, power is a constant interest, even though one often says, dismiss it, beware of it, watch out for it. Any challenge is met. The achiever graciously and skillfully demonstrates power with force and with authority. Castration and the weakening vulnerability it brings are kept at bay. Don't get caught in a weak position. Fortuitously, Al had given me important information on how to interview people who, for me, I had a great deal of respect and honor, and I admired their status. Stay grounded and relaxed. Others around you will often become so too. I found this to be the case. Armor drops away. The door opens to spontaneous, unconscious revelation. It happened with Lowen himself when I interviewed him. Al Lowen regularly spoke and wrote about the opposition of his mother and father. I quote, "My father, he was body-oriented, very sexually oriented. My mother was just the opposite, head-oriented and anti-sexual. From his father, he got his feeling of sexuality and pleasure, is what we were taught. And for his mother, his intellectual ability and his drive to achieve." When Al let a memory slip out from around the age of 5, excuse me, that reflected something very different, it was stunning. As I recall it, my father opened the door to my room and found me masturbating. He was very angry, and he hit me. It was very unlike him. Where was his pleasure-loving, sexually oriented father? Was this the source of the sexual difficulties he brought to Reich for therapy? Not his mother, or at least not just his mother, but his father? When I regained myself, I remarked on the inconsistency. Suddenly, a small, frenetic, wide-eyed boy was in front of me. Quickly, rapidly, out popped, "I bet my mother put him up to it." The unresolved issue, castration, helplessness and pain in time of vulnerability, disowned and distorted. We gather here as an institute, the Bioenergetic Institute that Alexander Lowen founded and led into his mid-80s. Started with several colleagues in the 1950s, it continues today, spread across the world. A place to carry out and advance the work he began. A place to meet those who have shared common body experiences, have gone down into their core feelings, their primal feelings. A place to express passion and celebration. A place to nourish our being, our work, and our knowledge. It is this institute which gathers us here today to remember and honor him. There is much to be thankful for. Al gave his energy, his heart, even his financial resources to make this institute work and grow. Those who participate in it are able to reap its ongoing resources as fruits. For myself and others, it has given a chance to serve in the training of people across the globe. The very act of building an institute in itself raises the confrontation with one's narcissism. In the main, at least as I see it, Al can be seen as getting it right. He named the institute the Bioenergetic Institute, named after his work, not after himself. Different from other therapeutic institutes of the time, although not without some struggle, there was no wholesale arrest of contributions from others, no battles of power through lawsuits, no ultimate destruction of what people were led into. Still, Al's relation with the institute he founded often was contentious. It remained so right up until his death, and perhaps, as we have heard, to this very moment. How come? Where does it fit in against his entire contribution? And what is there for us to do about it? Perhaps a large contributor to the difficulties might be what Al called his, quote, narcissistic character. Reinforce that with the times of the Institute's development, the times we've all lived through up until maybe right now, narcissistic times, re-emphasizing the narcissism in all of us. I always honored Al's openness and honesty about his personal difficulties and his willingness to mine them for insights and therapeutic directions that he shared. But in many encounters, Al's narcissistic struggles, reinforced by the nature of his character, was problematic. It caused pain. These were often discussed by Institute members outside his hearing, a sign of unresolved conflict. There was a question. Al shared with me that at times he wondered if he had gone the wrong direction. Would he have been better off just having followers like a guru? How can a person with a narcissistic character have an institute? Not easily, it appears. To establish an institute might at first appear a good idea, and I learned today, even at the beginning, he didn't think so. But eventually those following do not simply echo. They gain their own ground. They contest at times. They might even mock and ridicule. They challenge. When one of the lessons you teach to those who come for learning is stand on your own feet, go with your own feelings, how can it be different? But it must be noted that the founder of an institute is not alone in confronting their own narcissistic issues. To be a member, one has to struggle with them too. Organizations seem to require castration. Cultures, fraternities, armies, religions, all have rituals to be endured to gain membership. Diminish the applicant, blow over the ego, knock the pride out. Castration has been defined in the Dictionary of Psychological and Psychoanalytic Terms as a rude external deprivation of a cherished possession, of part of oneself. External deprivation of a cherished possession or part of oneself. We give part of ourselves up to organizations to gain and maintain membership. If we don't, we aren't a part of. We are above, outside, in front perhaps, but not within, not at one with. Even founders, if they are to be at peace with their organization, need repeatedly to go through the castration process. If not, tensions linger and lead to negative effects. For now, death is the ultimate castrator. Deprivation of life, the precious possession itself. Yet it is a key to human experience. Spiritual teachings tell us to live a full life, keep death awareness close to us at all times. Death, Alexander Lowen's death, has brought us together. It is up to us now to decide how Al will belong in the Institute, in our hearts, in our minds, and in our spirit. The future. Al taught us therapy never ends. How can the tensions he left with us be addressed, perhaps resolved, healed, and brought to peace? Death, as part of the human experience, gives us a chance for this. It places the need for healing directly in front of us. Al once asked me, "Why do I do therapy? Keep seeing clients." It was a real question. He expressed it with perplexity. And then he paused, as was mentioned the way he did, looked off and reflected on his own words. And then as I remember it, he said, "I guess it's the excitement I feel of being there, with the growth, with the healing." It is from this memory and to his honor that I ask we take a moment at this time to look to our own inner life, to move it forward. Where is it that we ourselves can grow and heal in our relationship to Alexander Lowen and to the Institute? What is unresolved? What battles are over? What future do we want to have? What parts might we play? I ask you to reflect in a minute of silence. And a moment to come back. Thanks to Al, and thanks to you.